4, 3, 2.
Well, hey, how's everyone doing? This is the Concerned Forum. And this is the last show of the new year. I should say that this is the last show where I have a guest for the new year. And, at first I was going to do this show, and I wasn't going to have any guests on this one. But I have my good friend Tom Nikko here. He's also, a producer and a writer. And I asked him if he could spare me about 30 minutes, just to get some of his input on what's happened here with the election of Donald Trump and, my feelings about Bill O'Reilly and the things that he said. And I think it's probably better that way because I believe in honesty, but we can also have, a certain amount of balance. And I wanted to see how other people feel about what's happened, about this big change in our electoral, not so much in our electoral process, but what that electoral process has brought to us. So I'm going to, without further ado, I'm going to let my good friend Tom Nikko basically say what he feels about the situation, and we'll take it from there. What do you think, Tom?
Well, Bob, we said we'd have a Q&A, right?
Yeah.
So here's the deal. I think there's nuances, right? So there's not one way or the other. And, in my heart of hearts, I want to hope for the best. And I do see, from what I've seen so far, I think that, first of all, Trump won fair and square with the system that we have. I noticed you mentioned Electoral College, right?
Yeah.
And so he won fair and square. That's the system. There was no, there's been talk about rigging systems. Do you think we rigged the system? You think it's a fair system or no?
Well, I think that I'm concerned, being a former intelligence technician, I'll be honest about it. I'm concerned when the various intelligence agencies are talking about Russian involvement.
Can we trust them?
Yeah.
The CIA lies all the time,
I think that what we have here is a situation.
Well, not lies all the time, but they've lied in the past.
Well, they have lied in the past, usually because they had pressure by the executive, government.
So you think the CIA lies because the politicians pressure them to lie?
I think that's a large part of the problem.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
From what I've seen, the 5 years I spent in the White House and the Pentagon, I think a lot of pressure is brought upon the CIA. I think that left to their own devices, I don't think, especially in a situation like this, where you're talking about an election, I don't think that that's something that we should just turn away from as a nation. I think that we need to listen to our intel experts.
Yes, I agree. I agree because what else do we have?
Well, that's the problem.
We got nothing else to go on. And I'm not an insider, right? I'm an outsider.
Right.
So I read what the rest of the country reads, right?
Exactly.
I try to be a little bit more, I veer outside mainstream media, right? I read all sorts of media outlets, some independent.
Yeah.
And you make your conclusions, but I really don't have any kind of real proof because I'm not on the inside track. When you were on the inside track, did you feel like you had a better handle on things as far as information goes?
Yeah.
Yes.
I really felt that way.
Yeah.
I most certainly did.
Yeah. And now being an outsider, right? Because you used to be an insider, now you're an outsider. Do you feel like the system has changed dramatically as to what it was versus what it is now?
No. And maybe that's part of the problem.
Yes.
I don't sense any dramatic change in how we do intel. See, what people need to understand, what our politicians want, what our people who run our government want, they want a certain conclusion. And a lot of times they put pressure on our intel people.
Right.
CIA, DIA,
right.
NSA, national security advisors.
Right.
They're pressured to give us a certain conclusion.
Right.
That's the problem.
I was mostly referring to the changes from what used to be and what it is now, is that it seems like in many different situations we have set a new precedent. In other words, you know, I read about James Comey doing the things that he did. I mean, there are laws against actually, usually FBI is not in the business of revealing investigations a week and a half before an election. And he might have been bright enough to determine that it might sway the election one way or the other, right?
I think what Comey did was extremely dangerous.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
But my point is that,
but that was wrong. I think. Yeah.
Granted, but the thing is that if it was years ago, maybe some of these guys, whatever they do, whether it's Comey or Trump or anybody for that matter, up at that high echelon, there would be some kind of repercussions.
Yes, there would
But we
be.
don't see any repercussions anymore. We don't see. There's no accountability. Not in the banking world, not in the political world, not in corporate America anymore. So it seems like it's a free-for-all, and just people do whatever they want. And as a direct result of that, it emboldens all the other corrupt assholes that are going to come out of the woodworks, and they're going to do what they want.
Well, that is, if someone were to ask me, what my biggest problems with these last 8 years have been with the Obama regime.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I would have to say that the problem with the Obama crew was that they really didn't bust their butts to hold anyone accountable. No big time banking corporate heads went to jail.
Right.
This whole thing about what Comey did, I haven't heard the president make one mention about Comey.
Not only that, I haven't heard the president make one mention of all the shenanigans that went on in the primary in the DNC.
Yeah, as the head of the party, he should.
And there's a lot of not only that we can include about Obama, because he made all these promises 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And how many promises did he break? And he did some really crazy off-the-wall stuff.
Like what? Tell me.
I'll tell you. Why, sure. In 2012, he signed something called the National Defense Authorization Act.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And he signed that in there, which is basically a budget for the Defense Department, right?
Right.
And he signed it, and he put a little clause in there that has nothing to do with budgets, and he basically got rid of due process in this country. Meaning due process, if the president deems you to be an enemy combatant, he points the finger, they come, they lock you away, and then they never hear from you again.
I think that unfortunately, and I know that this bothers him. I read his face.
Right.
I know that this, what I'm getting ready to say, bothers him, but unfortunately,
You could tell that by reading his face?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm talking about, his legacy.
His legacy.
He feels very defensive about his legacy.
Got to be a reason why.
Yeah, because, and this has always been my primary beef about Obama.
Right.
He knows better. He signed what you talked about, that defense authorization bill.
So what do you think? His hands are tied? You think some guys come out of a door he never thought was there, and with black suits, and they sit him down, and they say, "Hey, listen, man, you're gonna do what we tell you to do." You think that's what the case is?
Oh God, you asked some very good questions.
Yeah, I mean, because I scratch my head every day. I mean, every other day I read something. Every day I read something. There's always a head scratcher going on.
I think that's what you said. I think that maybe not as graphic, but I think that when he got there, I think that someone or a certain group of people presented the world to him. Yeah. And that type of reality.
Right. So what you're saying is there is some kind of a conspiratorial thing going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm not.
And you were on the inside track, so well, let's say it as it is, right? I mean.
Yeah. It is. You like I say.
Did you get a better sense of that when you were on the inside track about the conspiratorial thing?
I saw things I didn't like.
Really?
Yeah. I saw.
Like Snowden did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't have the guts that Snowden did.
Right.
That's the major difference.
Right.
I was a sailor in the Navy, and I was there doing the job.
Sure.
And unfortunately, I saw things that gave me a lot of food for thought. and the things that I saw were not good for a democracy or an elective government.
Sure.
And I think that what happened with Obama, he felt that he was, he never understood that he wasn't a senator anymore. See, he was a senator, this young, handsome black guy, well-spoken, and he was collegial with everybody from the biggest left-winger all the way to my fellow Navy veteran, John McCain. And he thought that when he came into the White House, that type of relationship would continue. And what happened, he walked into a brick wall.
Right.
And he found out that he was going to have two choices. Either he was going to stand up and, quote unquote, be a rebel, be another Jack Kennedy.
Right.
Or he was going to try to work, quote unquote, within the system.
That's a logical conclusion.
Yeah.
I can kind of see what you're saying, and I think, at least I want to believe that's probably the most logical conclusion we can come up with about Obama, because he's done some, he's, the way he handled the whole primary thing, because when he comes out and speaks, any president comes out and speaks, okay, that carries a lot of juice, right?
Yeah.
So all the shenanigans that went on with the primaries with Sanders and Clinton, I felt Sanders got the shaft a little bit.
He did. Now I was a Bernie Sanders person.
So was I.
From the word go.
So was I.
And I felt sad that what Obama should have done as president and as head of the party,
right?
What he, titular head of the party, he should have just backed off and said, "Okay, you birds are going to fight it out. I'm not going to, put my hand on the scale in either direction." But he didn't do that. He kept trying to basically help Hillary.
Oh, you thought that was the case?
Yeah. And
in what ways, though?
A lot of the things that he said, a lot of the things, the way he spoke about Bernie.
Yeah.
Anytime he spoke about Bernie before the primary was over, it was, to me anyway, it was like, oh yeah, Bernie's a great guy. But
yeah, I got you. Sure.
And that's the whole Democratic establishment attitude towards Bernie. And see, that's one of the reasons why Bernie did not win the primary. Another reason.
You think he didn't? You think he didn't win the primary though, or do you think there was some kind of shenanigans going on there?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
How do you call a race in California before the race actually starts?
Yeah,
they called California the night before people went out to vote.
Right. It was juiced in Hillary's favor. Right. Put it that way.
Yeah. When you use the word juiced, what do you mean?
I mean that things that could have been done by the DNC.
Right.
To keep the contest even,
they
didn't do it. They put their hand on the scale for Hillary.
I agree. It felt like she felt like she was the anointed one. Like she was. It's her duty to become the next president of the United States.
Now let me ask you something. Talking about Trump.
Yeah.
A lot of people are very hurt by the fact that he's in the White House.
You're damn right.
Not just here in the United States, but in most of the civilized world.
Yeah, I think they're hurt up in Mars, too. I think that bothers the Martians, too.
I heard that. Tell me something, man.
Yeah.
I want to ask your opinion.
Yeah.
Why do you think he won?
I think he won for many reasons, but I don't think that a lot of people say that he came out and every racist came out. But we don't have enough racists in this country to I think he won for... I think he won because there's a lot of working class people that lost their jobs. And to me, from everything that I've read, that is the most plausible scenario. I think he won because he went out and he campaigned like a presidential candidate should do. He went to small towns and he really worked hard for it. Clinton didn't work hard for it because she thought she would be the anointed one. So I think those are two big reasons why he won.
I'll tell you, when we talk about Trump winning,
I also think he's a very charismatic guy.
Yeah.
And that appeals to people.
Yeah. Now, you're a native New Yorker, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, just like myself. So we know
Well,
Trump.
I was born in Greece, but I've been raised here all my life.
Okay. Well, see, that's what I'm saying. Native New Yorkers, we know Donald Trump.
Yes.
We know where he's at.
That's right.
We know where he's been. We know what he's done.
Right.
But I think that looking at this election, and right now, I'm going to put the whole thing about the racism on the shelf.
Yeah.
I'm going to put the whole thing about the Russians on the shelf.
Right. What are you going to talk about the Russians, though? What are you going to say about that? Do you think the Russians hacked this?
I think that.
Or do you think they were trying to play in Trump's favor?
I think that they got involved.
Right.
Put it that way.
Right.
I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
Because they saw in Trump
Yeah.
somebody that was a non-geopolitical activist. Okay.
Right.
In
Right.
other words, Trump, in their minds.
Yes.
And by going by what Trump said,
Yes.
he's not going to be the one that's going to constantly worry about what Western Europe is thinking about the Russians, like, for example, in the Ukraine.
Yeah.
Okay? I think the Russians like that. They want to be the dominant power on the European continent. And they felt that if Hillary got to be president, that she was not going to allow that. And they feel that with Trump as president, they're going to be able to get away or do a lot more in terms of bolstering their own influence with Trump in the White House. So, yeah, I think they're quite pleased to see Trump, in the White House. And you got to remember, the Russians are very
Authoritative?
Yeah,
Right.
they like powerful guys.
Yeah, sure,
okay?
absolutely. Yeah. They like authoritarians.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Just like Putin is.
right. And I'll
Right.
tell you something else too. And I learned this when I was at the Pentagon,
Right.
and just studying history, because that's my thing.
Sure.
One thing that most Americans forget is that they see Russia in terms of the Russia / and the Soviet Union. Whether it's communist, whether it's authoritarian, doesn't make a difference.
Sure.
Russia has certain strategic interests.
Right.
They're going to play that.
Sure.
They're going for that. No matter if you got a communist guy sitting up there,
Right.
or if you got a totalitarian dictator, oligarch, makes no difference.
Right.
Russia is going to be Russia. The bear, like we used to say at the Gone.
They're very proud of their country.
Yeah, in many respects
Yeah.
they are. The
Yeah.
bear is going to be the bear,
Sure.
no matter who's in charge.
Sure.
As long as somebody is in charge. I don't think they would be ready for what we have here in terms
Right.
of so-called democracy representative government.
Sure.
Okay?
Sure.
So I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make in dealing with Russia. She ain't going to change. They could get rid of Putin tomorrow and get somebody else in there. It's going to be the same thing.
I'm hearing you talk, and what I'm thinking is that that's your perspective, and the issue that I have, I don't know if it's an issue, but is that I hear so many different perspectives that my head starts spinning, and I don't know what's what, man, because I'm an outsider. I read this, I read that, and at the end of the day, you try to decipher and try to figure out where the truth starts and the bullshit ends, or vice versa, and there's so much going on right now.
Yeah.
The world is a very turbulent place,
Right.
right? And so it's confusing because I say, okay, so we have 17 intelligence agencies that came out and said, yes, Russia has hacked us, right?
Uh-huh.
And then I might read something from The Intercept, which is a media outlet that I really respect. And basically, I think up until today, I read this in Occupy Democrats, I think. But again, so my point is that they haven't come out with any proof yet.
Right.
Okay, as to Russia hacking us, right?
Okay.
There's no physical proof, right?
Okay, go ahead. I'm going to answer
Now
your question.
today I read something that sort of alluded to the fact that they do have some proof. But then even as I was reading that, I started saying, well, can I trust this media outlet, or are they giving me fake news again?
Here's the problem. And just like you're talking about trust.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Trust plays a key role in this whole conversation.
absolutely.
And see, this is what happens sometimes, like the boy who cried wolf.
Yeah,
A lot of the things we can say.
right.
Okay. Yeah, we know Russia was involved in hacking, interfering with our election.
Sure.
Right. here goes the problem. A lot of that will probably never be disclosed, because if it's disclosed, that is letting out information. That's telling the whole world, right now the Russians, but also the whole world, that we know how to find out what you're doing. So,
I understand that, and I totally understand that. However, though, isn't there a public interest for the public to know on some level? I mean, can they give us a little morsel or some, we don't have to get the whole loaf. Can we get a couple slices or some crumbs or something on the floor? I mean, just to appease us?
in the intelligence, see, this is the problem.
Yeah.
This is what we face as supposedly a free society. Because how in the hell can people make intelligent political decisions if they don't know the whole story?
Sure.
But then if you tell them the whole story,
Right.
then,
They don't want to buy into it?
well, no, then the bad guys who you don't want to know,
Right.
they'll also know. I give you an example.
Yeah, but they know.
You
They
see
know.
the-
Everybody knows.
You saw the movie, have you seen it yet? You got to see it.
What is it?
Well, what's his name? That English guy. He's a great actor.
English guy. Jesus.
Yeah, The Imitation
Tom
Game.
Hardy.
Imitation
English?
Game.
Right,
He has that
Imitation
funny name. Oh God. Believe me, when you see it, you know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
But the name of the movie is The Imitation Game.
Okay.
And basically what it's about is how the Allies, they were the ones in Bletchley Park in England that were able to break the Enigma code that the Nazis had invented.
Right.
And there were times when they had to sit there and let whole cities be blown away. Let convoys carrying troops be blown away by submarines.
Sure.
Because if they acted upon the information
Right.
that they were able to find,
Right.
that means the Nazis would be able to know, they know our code. They know how to get into our code.
Right.
So therefore, we'll change it.
Right.
And that would really screw us up.
Right.
So this is the problem that the present administration has.
Right.
If they reveal, piece by piece, piece by piece.
Right.
Did I say piece by piece?
You did. You said piece by piss.
That's probably
You started with peace and you ended with piss.
that's probably a Freudian slip.
You got to go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
I'll do the show while you go take a bio break, as they call it in the corporate world.
No, but what it is, right?
Yeah.
If you give it to them, every bit of the information.
Yeah.
Here's a big board. This is how we know the Russians hacked us, A, B, and C.
Sure.
Then the whole world knows.
Yeah, but here's the problem. I mean, you and I are talking. We're trying to reach some conclusion. We'll never reach it because we don't know.
See, that's another part.
That's the issue.
Yeah, see, that's another part of the problem.
By the time they reach the conclusion, we'll be long dead. Hopefully, our kids will know.
Will they? I don't know.
I don't know.
It took them about 60 years to tell the truth about how they found out about Enigma.
Right.
Before that became open to the public.
Right. How long did
know.
it take for us to find out about Deep Throat?
Oh, my God. What? That was 71, 72?
Sure. And then what? They came out in, like, when did that guy, the agent?
He died about 10 years ago, right?
Right, yeah. So, at least 40 years, 40 plus years, right? Give
I
or take.
remember that. I remember, Watergate, because that was the first time I had went in the service. I was 17. And the first time I found out about Watergate, it was in the spring of 72. And I was a border troop in what was then West Germany. And people were going up for promotion. And one of the questions that they asked was, what do you think of Watergate? And we were saying, what the hell is Watergate? And then I did the research and I found out what Nixon had been up to.
Right.
But it's wild when that kind of stuff happens in government because it's scary. Listen, man, I'll tell you straight up. One of the things that really bothers me about this administration.
Yeah.
And
You mean with this administration? You mean
coming
president?
in?
Yes, president-elect.
Coming in?
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of black folks, they're not going to, especially when they're in this kind of a media forum.
Yeah.
They try to be couch their language and what have you.
Sure.
But look, we got a guy who's elected president that the Ku Klux Klan is jumping up and down. They're holding cross-burning rallies in praise of Donald Trump being elected. You know, believe me, for a black guy, especially for a black American guy,
That pisses you off.
it's scary.
Yeah, it's scary.
It really is. I mean, I grew up. I'm kind of half and half. My dad was from the Caribbean. I don't think I told you that. My old man was from the Caribbean.
Sure.
His father was from the Dominican Republic.
Right.
My grandmother was born in one of those French islands. I think she was Haitian.
Right.
Either Haiti or Grenada or Martinique, one of those.
Sure.
And she died shortly after he was born. And so they shipped him over to the Dominican Republic.
Mm-hmm.
And his father got rid of him by the time he was about, 8 or something, or 9.
Right.
Reason being because he wouldn't keep still.
Right.
And they were, constantly in a state of revolt. And my old man was crawling up, looking over the walls. And you know how Mediterranean houses are built with the courtyards and stuff.
Love it.
Yeah, and he would sit up on top in the courtyard watching the guys get shot. You know, they have him on the firing squad.
Rough ride.
Yeah, and so my grandfather would say, "Oh God, I gotta get this kid out of here before he gets his head blown off."
Right.
So they sent him back to St. Thomas, and he had to learn how to speak English, blah blah blah.
Right.
And then he comes up here when he's about 18 or 19.
Sure.
And that was like at the start of the Great Depression. My parents were kind of older, and my mom. She ran away when she was like 16 from Virginia.
Right.
Because Richmond, Virginia, as a matter of fact, because of the racial climate.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're telling me that the group that lynched my uncle, on her side of the family, I think it was either her first cousin or her brother, one of her brothers. The Klan was chasing him for whatever reason, I don't know.
Sure.
And he kept running right into the middle of a pond or something, and he just drowned.
Right.
And they dragged his body out and hung him up and did things to it.
Oh, God, that's horrible. I'm sorry to hear that, Bob.
Well, that's like a family story among many of the older African Americans who come from the South. So, see, I catch it from both sides. I catch it from the colonial Caribbean side, and I catch it from the southern side.
Sure.
And I'm born and raised here in New York.
Right.
And see, this explains why I should be on the psychiatrist's couch somewhere. I
think we all should. We all should be.
But it bothers, it bothers many people of color who have living memory of.
You think that Trump is a racist?
I think that's a very good question.
Yeah.
I know.
Because I'm not sure he's a racist. I've heard Van Jones once say something that kind of
really?
rang true for me.
What did
He said he's a racial opportunist, meaning he's using the opportunity to fan the flames of racism for his own benefit. But I don't think he's I don't know. I don't know. I never met the guy. I never hung out with him, so I really don't. I can't tell you. But when I heard Van Jones say that, I felt, well, you know what? That kind of makes sense to me.
As you say that, and as I take the time to think about it.
But then again, he's got Bannon in the White House. So what is that?
Well,
but then again, other people say Bannon's not a racist. I mean, but then he works for Breitbart. So again, we're getting confused once again. We're back and forth like a ping pong game.
Well, that's a big deal. You're on the right subject. Believe me, what you're talking about is a very serious subject that people are extremely interested in.
Right.
Both here and overseas.
Right. The problem is we're going to talk till we're blue in the face and never figure anything out.
Well, I think after the 20th of next month.
Yeah. We'll know more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're going to know a lot more.
What do you think's going to happen? The world's going to collapse on the 21st? It's going to cave in?
I hope not, but I do think it's going to be a hell of a lot different in certain respects.
In what sense, though? I'm trying to figure out, because I always thought, like, when he gets into the White House, How is it going to change? How are we going to see the change materialize in front of us?
I think that in terms of foreign policy, you know what I want to see?
That's spooky stuff.
I want to see if he's going to start bringing troops back from Afghanistan.
Which he said he would, right?
Yeah, that's what I want to see.
Right.
I want to see him do that.
Right.
See, look, I don't want him to basically take America into the way we were in the 20s.
Sure.
Okay?
Right.
Because what happened, we kind of turned away from the rest of the world.
Right.
And the world went to hell. And then we had to be involved in trying to straighten it out.
Right.
And see, I don't want to see that happen. Okay? I think that...
He doesn't have a good track record, though, for trust.
No, he
It
doesn't.
doesn't seem like he's a very trustworthy fellow.
See, this is what maybe you can explain.
He actually
this.
came out and said, "Hey, I was just saying that for my
Well,
campaign."
I'm not trying to be funny. You're a white guy.
Yeah.
Explain to me why working class white guys are going to go and support a guy. Number one, he's got gold sink handles in his jet that he flies around in, but on top of that, he's known for not for cheating his workers.
Yeah, I think that you're asking me to explain something that's it's a head scratcher. I think I have some friends that are Trump supporters,
Okay.
and I say, well, he talks like me. He's a regular guy, and okay,
He's
I kind of
not
I understand that. On some level, you see him up at the podium and he's talking like a real guy. He's talking real talk to a certain degree. But even a real talker can be a bullshitter too, right?
Well, obviously he's a bullshitter.
Well, the thing is that, look, I want to hope that he's been bullshitting all of us, and when he gets in there, he's going to do something good.
That's the
And
dream.
he's going to go back to he used to be a Democrat, right? He's going to go back to his Democratic roots.
He was not a Democrat. This guy was a libertine.
Right.
So I remember he used to run through, damn it, I can't remember the name of that disco in the whole, was it Regine's?
Regine's, yes.
Yeah, I
right,
used
on
to work
Park
in there
Avenue.
for a while.
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Before I
yeah.
went back into service.
Really? No kidding?
Yeah.
You know a guy named Christian? Christian was the manager there, I think, at Regine's many
Was
years
that
ago.
a tall guy? Tall
Long
white guy?
ponytail?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
And we're going way back now. But anyway.
Yeah, okay. But I'm just saying, so I know him.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a wild man, quite frankly.
Right.
And this has not really changed about him.
Sure.
And
Well, just because somebody's wild doesn't mean that they
No,
can't
doesn't
have
mean that they-
conservative thoughts in their head.
yeah, see, I think the thing that really scared people
Yeah.
was when he started off on this business about Obama not being born
Sure.
in America.
Right.
Okay? That is what started to put a cloud over him
Sure.
for a lot of people of color.
Sure.
Okay? And then, as far as the campaign was concerned, you don't start off a presidential campaign denigrating a whole class, a whole culture, a whole ethnic group of human beings.
Sure.
What he said about Mexicans.
Well, the kind of questions, I mean, did he want to be president?
He never wanted to be president. He said so.
I mean, if there's a way if there's a surefire way that you're going to lose the presidency, is just come out and say Mexicans are rapists.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, that's a good. Chances are you're not going to get in that way.
Well, see, he had a lot of things going for him, though. Number one,
Well, yeah.
yeah, the Republican Party has been going in that direction since the late 60s.
Sure.
Okay, that's the first thing. Second thing, they've been playing around with the votes, telling thousands of people in certain areas, which just happen to be college whites or low-income blacks, hey, you can't vote anymore. So that helped too, And then again, like they're saying with this whole Russian thing, the point I'm trying to make is that he had quite a few things tipping the scale in his favor. But even though he had that, I still put that on the shelf, and I look at all the millions of working class white people that would still vote for this guy.
You know what? Back to your original question. Yes, it's a head scratcher for me because it's almost like, look, man, here's the proof, but they look the other way.
Yeah.
It's like discarding. But you know, I mean, he spoke about getting jobs back in the country. He spoke about the taxing private equity guys. Having them pay their fair share.
Yeah.
I'm for that. I'm not against.
Yeah.
I'm for getting rid of the wars and having our troops come back into the country. I'm
Yeah.
for that. So there were some policies that he stood for during his campaign that I was for. However, now looking at his cabinet, it doesn't seem to me that he's going to live up to his promises.
Well, he's got a billionaire cabinet.
he's got a billionaire cabinet.
He didn't drain the swamp. He put more garbage in the swamp.
He put a lot of alligators in the swamp.
There you go. That's a nicer way to put it. You know. Are you good? Or you still got?
I'm good. I got another 2 minutes. You want to conclude?
Well,
what do you want to say?
I want to say I'm glad you took the time.
Thank you, brother.
To come in here.
Thank you.
And cool me down, calm me down.
Thank you. Do you feel better?
Yeah, I do.
Good.
I do.
Good.
With little time is left, I think I can go ahead and do this intelligently.
Good.
Because my anger has
subsided.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not forgotten.
No.
But it's subsided.
Anger is never forgotten.
Yeah, but it's subsided.
How long do you think till the anger comes back again? Because that's what I'd like to discuss. That interests me.
I think that will depend.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
About what happens.
Right.
With his government.
Right. Isn't there something to be said about tuning out though, so we don't get angry anymore? Instead of going home and reading the Times, we might go home and read cartoons, Spider-Man.
Yeah. Oh, I love Spider-Man.
Yeah, I mean, isn't there something to be said about tuning in? Because sometimes we look down on people who tune out because we call them dumb and uninformed and they should be more aware.
Yeah.
However, though, on the flip side, maybe they're smarter than all of us because they have this ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
They're totally tuned out and they're enjoying life and they're ha 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 and they're laughing all the way.
You see, the only thing is that you got to be careful. You can't tune out so much to the point that you can't see the truck when it's coming down to run you over. You know.
That's a good point.
So that's what I'm going to try and do. I'm going to just basically, after they see me next week, or the week after, when is it, the 9th, I got that thing.
Right.
And the VA doctors take a look at my shoulder and my, spine, all that good stuff.
Well, I'm going to conclude. I want to thank you for having me on.
I want to thank you for coming. I appreciate it.
And I want to see the next show. I want to see you when you're angry. Because you know why? That might be a compelling show. I want to see you come and look in the camera and start pissing and moaning and, get a little energy going.
Well, we'll see.
So sometimes anger is good.
Yeah.
All right, buddy.
Sometimes. God
Be
bless.
well.
Okay. Thank you again.
Sure.
Well, everyone, that was my good friend Tom Nikko, and I had him come on because I had gotten to the point after dealing with what Bill O'Reilly did last week. Or, excuse me, today is Friday, so I guess I can still say it this week. It really upset me because I'm sitting up here and I'm a partially disabled veteran, and I say that every chance I get because especially in the present environment, in the present atmosphere that we have in this country, I want to drill that into people's minds because you have a bunch of people, for real, this is what's going on. This is Friday night down in D.C., the wine and cheese parties are probably finished, and they're all in their various clubs knocking back martinis, and they're talking about the good job that they can do, essentially removing people of color out of the American political equation. And that angers me. And I see Bill O'Reilly as a part of that. I see Fox News as a part of that for the things that have been said on that show in regards to people of color. And for those who don't know, let me tell you what's got me so steamed up. O'Reilly is one of those people that believes that we should leave the Electoral College alone. He feels that it's important because of the fact that it stops people living in large cities from winning or controlling who gets to be president. On top of that, he says that it's dangerous because the large cities contain a lot of black and Hispanics, and that they are being used by progressives to end or bring down the white power structure. Now, this is what came out of O'Reilly's mouth. White power structure / white political structure. Those two words, all right? Both of them should be anathema to any American, quite frankly. But that's what O'Reilly said. Now, it angers me because you got Lonnie Jackson, you got Nelson Rodriguez, and these guys, one doesn't have a leg, the other one doesn't have an arm. And of course, we're forgetting Moses Jackson, he didn't come home. And these are veterans. That's what I'm referring to. Okay? These are veterans, black and brown and red and yellow, who gave body parts. Some gave their lives. Some gave their sanity. Okay? All for the sake of this place that we call America. So for Bill O'Reilly to make this comment that, oh, well, we have to keep the Electoral College because then all those people in the cities will be able to vote and exert their influence on how our government is run. I don't know. I got most of my basic education in Catholic school, with St. Thomas the Apostle and the Sal Academy. And then I skipped out for about 9 months and went to Seward Park Public High School for about 9 months, and then I went in the service for the first time in the Army. Now, through all of that, I don't know, I might be part of the last generation that was actually taught civics. Because I was taught a couple of things. I was taught that as an American, the right to vote was a precious right that many people in many other countries didn't have. That's the first thing that I was taught. The next thing I was taught was that here in America, it's supposed to be government by the people and for the people, and that the way we do things, majority rules. So I don't know what in the hell Bill O'Reilly, I don't understand where he gets his civics from, number one. Number two, I did a little research about the Electoral College. Now, everybody knows, or they should know, that originally here in America, black folks were counted, in the South especially, were counted as 3/5 of a person. That was the compromise that had to be made for the South to agree to, sign on to the Constitution. Now, Yankee states, your northern states, I think most of them were just, hey, let's end this damn slavery thing and get rid of it once and for all. And the South basically said, no, well, if you do that, we're going to break up. And this is, we're talking like in the 1780s. So the Revolutionary War has been fought and won. And we were under the Articles of Confederation. And people felt that wasn't working out too good in terms of commerce, in terms of foreign policy, etc. And they said, well, look, we need something a little stronger. And they decided to design the Constitution. Now, I think you can find things to pick at with the Constitution in terms of it weighs somewhat heavier for property owners. Okay, I grant you that. But the thing that's so cool about it, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Pennsylvania and a few other states would not sign on if they didn't put in those first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, that government shall not respect any particular religion, the right to arm oneself, the right to assemble, to protest, all that good stuff. Freedom of speech. And the whole slave thing was a compromise to the South. As usual, everything was given to the South. That's why the first 6 presidents of this republic were from the South. This is not, liberals bashing, the white Protestant South, fundamentalist South. This is history. Okay, the first presidents, first 6, what were they? Washington, Adams, with the exception of John Adams, and he was a one-termer. So 6 out of 7, that's not bad, right? And that was because the South would get over, basically, because they had a smaller population of whites, generally, than the rest of the country, but they had a huge amount of slaves. And what they did, they said, well, listen, if we get into this, democratic republic thing that you guys are talking about with the Constitution and what have you, we're always going to get our butts kicked because we're always outnumbered. You're always going to have more in the Congress and what have you. So this is what we're willing to do. We're going to go ahead and we're going to count our blacks as 3/5 of a person. So that way, we feel we will have, political protection because your population of North so overwhelms us in terms of the electoral process. And to make further sure that we're going to get treated fairly, we're going to have the Electoral College to select who is going to be the chief executive. So you see, this whole Electoral College thing is something out of the 18th century, along with that 3/5 compromise. Now, of course, all that stuff went out the window because of the Civil War and because we ended slavery, chattel slavery in this country. But for some reason, we allowed that Electoral College thing to stay. I'll give you an example of how dumb this whole population thing is. You got states like, for example, North Dakota, right? A Republican state, a red state. Just thought I'd mention it. The housing project that I grew up in, the Grant Projects, okay, right over here on 125th, 124th of Amsterdam Avenue, between Amsterdam and Broadway. That project has more people than the state of North Dakota, just about. Yet, they're able to have 2 senators, just like New York is able to have 2 senators. And see, I understand about fairness for our smaller states, but this electoral college thing is just another device for a minority to constrain a majority. And it needs to stop. It needs to be ended. And see, this is what Bill O'Reilly is trying to do. He's trying to keep a lot of this old, antiquated BS so that in his idea, in his mind, the United States can continue to be maintained as a white male preserve. Which, when I think about it, that always kind of tickles me to hear an Irish Catholic say these kind of things. But that's a whole nother story. That's for another history lesson. But yeah, that's what O'Reilly is about. And I think it's time that people stand up to that. Now, I spoke about that on my last show. I speak about it again on this show as we go into a new year. That the racism displayed by O'Reilly and by Fox News, I think people need to call them upon it. Now, I get all this crap about, oh, well, you got to have freedom of speech. I agree. But as one great jurist from the Supreme Court said, you don't have the right to yell fire in a crowded theater when there's no fire. And that's what Fox and O'Reilly, that's all they've been doing for the last decade. And it's really time, personally, that's my personal feeling, it needs to come to a halt. But forgetting my personal feelings, I believe that if they're going to do that, if they're going to insult communities of color, then we should have a right to stand up and argue in our own defense as to why, in this case, the Electoral College is wrong. But there have been other cases. And that's why I feel that if Fox is unwilling to fire O'Reilly or fire any one of their commentators when they make, racist innuendos like that, they're not willing to fire them, then they have to be willing to allow somebody to stand up and speak in the defense of the people whom they're insulting. If they can't do one of those two things, then I feel that any commercial product organization, what have you, that wants to go, that goes to Fox, who supports what they're doing with this, then they need to be boycotted. It's just that simple. That's my opinion. And I hope that my opinion becomes the opinion of all Americans, quite frankly, especially here in the Northeast. O'Reilly works in one of the most diverse areas of the planet. And yet, him and Fox constantly say things to denigrate the people that he works amongst. Whether we work at Fox or not, he lives among us. Okay, he works among us, put it that way. And yet, and they do this. It's like Fox feels that, well, if you want to have a KKK rally in our lobby here in New York City, we should, let's go ahead and do it. And once again, like I say, yeah, you got the freedom of speech, but so do I. And see, you're on my airwaves. I'm part of the public. And you can basically say any damn thing you want, but I should have the right to be on that same airwave and answer it. Now, I'm going to tell you something, and it's a sad thing to say. if you look at the history, before the gas ovens in Nazi Germany, you know what happened? You had people in the Nazi Party like Goebbels who would get on the radio and constantly, talk malign Jews, gypsies, Roman Catholic priests that wouldn't go along with the, what would you call it, some type of concordant between the official church and Adolf Hitler. In other words, they constantly maligned the folks who were their enemies over the radio, over the airwaves. And what happened? They turned the pro-population basically against the people that they didn't like. I've seen the results, the camps, Auschwitz, places like that. The world saw those results. So that's another reason why I am so down on Fox and O'Reilly. Because that's the same thing that started another Holocaust. And we need, as Americans, to make up in our minds that we're not going to stand by and see that type of thing take place here in the United States. Now, if we were in Europe, O'Reilly would probably have been in jail. I got to really look into what Fox is doing overseas. But I know that you can't malign ethnic groups of people like that and get away with it. Now, I understand why they have laws like that. I understand why in Europe and in Canada they fine people for saying certain things about groups of people. I guess because they have a better memory of not only of World War II, but the things that led up to World War II. They remember that better than we do here in the States. Because you gotta remember, we had legal segregation here in America way before Hitler started persecuting Jews. So maybe that's what happened. America was so conditioned to stomping on people of color that it took a while for, remember, this is true, it took a while for America to really understand the danger that a fascist regime could cause the whole world. Remember Lindbergh? Remember America First? Yeah. Right, yeah. Well, we don't want to see that happen again. So that's what I'm saying. It's time for Fox to put up or shut up. Either get rid of O'Reilly or allow someone face to face, if possible, to speak up for the people of color that he denigrates. It's just that simple. Listen, this is Bob Gumbs, the Concerned Forum. Have a happy new year. And let's fight to make sure that we don't go backwards. Happy New Year.